Hello there everybody, this is Alex from Hardcorian Guides, being my guide for Resident Evil 4 on professional difficulty. Today we're doing Chapter 2-1. This one is going to contain the pretty much the beginning of the church area. Oh, actually, I think you finished the church in like one go. Well, regardless, we're heading back to the church, basically back to the graveyard and all that good stuff. So this takes place, I believe, right after we just got done with the first technical boss, well, the Del Lago or whatever. And I already forgot the name of the one guy. Oh, I can't believe I already did. Shit. Oh well. It's no big deal. I'm talking about the guy that you fight, I think, next. He might be the next boss. I always forget his name. He had a different name, too. Different in terms of like everybody else, because you got Salazar and you got Sadler. Yeah, that's the main, I think, final boss last name. It's funny, like, I've played this game a little bit, and yet I still can never remember names for some reason. I don't know why. I just have trouble with boss names. It's just stupid, I know. So anyway, this will be the first introductory stage of dealing with the Las Plagas. Basically, you got these head-spouting bastards. I don't have any particular strategy for how to completely decimate them. Of course, if you throw a flash grenade at them, then they will just explode in one shot. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just one good flash grenade will kill them instantly. So that's one thing of taking them out. Now, even though they're coming from the head, you can still essentially get that kind of like stun on them, where you can, you know, just kick them while they're stunned or anything else. But my problem is getting close to these guys, because I feel like even though you stun the head, I still feel as if they can still attack you. And typically, when it comes to those forms of it, the first forms of it, they have that sharp scythe end thing that I feel like can almost just butcher you if you get too close and you get too ecstatic and trying to get up there and close and personal. So one thing I could recommend would be just keep your distance, shoot him with a pistol a few times. If you got some flash grenades on you and you spawn both those down there, I'd say just throw it. You've got no other reason to use it, then why not? Now, this is something I heard, and this will come into play later once we get into the house with Louis, or Louis, however you want to pronounce his name. I think it's Louis. I think it's Louis. Well, anyway, so once we get to meet Louis, you're going to be inside of a house, and you're going to have to kill off like 40 different ganados. And now, here's one thing I heard about this, not this particular part, but that part that comes up later, or just any part in general. As far as I'm concerned, the game can only process, or not process, but they can only technically spawn 2 Las Plagas enemies in one go. So, if you shoot off an enemy's head and he spawns one, then you can only, I think, do that. They can only have like 2 on the screen at one time, or in that group of enemies, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I could be wrong. That's just something I heard. So, whenever you're being surrounded by enemies and you're wondering, like, are they all going to have it? Well, most of the time, probably not. Now, when it comes to making them not spawn, typically it's best advised to just avoid the head altogether. And as far as I've heard, there's a way you can tell if they have it before you essentially knock off their head. And they say typically look at the eyes, and if it's like glowing red, then most likely they probably have it. But sometimes I feel like with later enemies, they glow red no matter what. So to me, it's hard to notice which ones are which, so I just go with the flow. So whatever pops up, I just kill it. So that's what I do. Right here, I did die, so I had to go ahead and edit that out. The reason why I died is because I tried killing all these guys off instead of just running through them, which, if you're a good shot, you can kill them all off just fine. I mean, I probably could have done it. I just died and screwed up. And I basically said, you know what? To hell with this. I'm just gonna not do that. Wait, actually, no, I am completely wrong. Okay, I did die though, but I was completely wrong about what my intentions were. I think the first time I was going through this, I tried to run through, and then I got murdered, and now I'm just playing it more safe, and instead just killing them all off instead. Okay, well. Yeah, even I can surprise myself sometimes. Okay, so when it comes to these guys, shotgun works pretty nice. You know, you get that nice little knockback. But if you want to save on some ammo, I recommend just whipping out the good old knife. You know, climb up this ladder, whip out the knife, and just start knifing them off the ladder. Yeah, it takes time, but if you got patience, you should be fine. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of patience in this game, right? I mean, you're trying to go through a survival horror game, so, you know, patience is definitely the key thing here, I would say. No doubt. Now, after you've killed all those guys or run away from them completely, it's your choice. Shotgun's nice because at least then you can just blast through them relatively easily. You could just basically push them back. Or, if you were a skilled marksman, you could essentially either rifle their ass or use the handgun and then get that whole stun thing going, or even knife them if you're a rebel. If you're doing like professional mode knife only. Ooh, man, no upgrades. Ooh. That would be a tough one, but I guess, you could technically do that. Alright, now we're heading back to the merchant area, and I think I sell some stuff off, most likely. I might buy some stuff, I don't exactly remember. Because this was done weeks ago, folks. I've kind of just forgotten most of what I've done. But most of what I do is kind of simple enough for me to remember. I don't remember every single little detail, but when it comes down to it, I kind of remember, some strategies with like bosses or specific groups of enemies that give me more trouble than most. Because some of these don't really give me too much trouble, but still. Okay, so that takes care of that. And in this, I'm going to sell off some items. Just to let you know, I do remember this from editing last night. I had about like 5 minutes worth of just going through this stuff. Because I was going to buy the RPG, which I do buy the RPG. So what I was essentially trying to do was buy it and make room. And you could no doubt tell right now that the video basically just clipped through. And for those that have a keen eye, you'll notice that I sold some stuff. And yeah, I pretty much did. I sold some stuff so I could make some room for the RPG, which I had plenty of money for, so that's good. They're always like 30,000 or something. So they're not too expensive, but they're still not cheap enough. But hey, it works. The reason why I recommend buying the RPG, I highly recommend buying the RPG, unless you're a really good player and you've got maybe like a TMP, which TMP is a pretty good weapon on its own, don't get me wrong. It's just, I don't really prefer using it for this first area. So this is why I prefer having the RPG. Bam, one shot, dead, gone. Typically kills off every boss in one shot unless a boss has another phase. And even though, for example, like whenever you fight off the next big boss, which I can't believe I forget his name. Damn it, he's like the really tall one, When his first phase, like he's on all 2 legs, and he's got the things, like the spider-like things coming out of his body, the Plagas thing coming out. And you blow him up with an RPG, he'll just have the upper top half for that fight, and you fight him in that farm thing, and it's catches on fire at the end. Well, yeah, if you shoot him with the RPG first, his top half, basically his phase 2 will activate, and so I recommend just killing off his phase 1, and then taking out his phase 2 with an RPG. Make things simpler, because in most games, phase 2 of like most bosses typically end up being harder than the last. I.e., for example, Mega Man X1 when you're fighting Sigma. You fight the wolf first, which is not too bad of a boss fight. Then you fight Sigma himself, which is a little harder, but something you can definitely get past. And then you fight, the final phase, which is just hectic. Like, he's just huge, and you gotta deal with all these obstacles and what have you. So, yeah, whenever it comes to multi-phase bosses, if you got the RPG on hand, I recommend taking out the first phase first, and then whipping out the RPG and blowing them up. Now, Sadler is different, because Sadler has a ton of phases. It doesn't seem like he does, but he actually does. And we'll get to that when we get to that scene, which is going to be at the finale. I do have an RPG for the final boss, and I use it once, which knocks him only down. It just knocks him down once. Pretty much giving you the eye stab, so there's that. So this was something I totally forgot about in my recording. I totally forgot about these guys being here, so this was just a mistake on my part. And I quickly panic a little bit, and I basically just whip out the good old shotgun to knock these guys down. Typically it takes, I want to say, like 3 shots, maybe, to kill off these dogs. I'm not exactly too sure. Now, one thing that kind of, it doesn't really bug me. You know, it makes a lot of sense, but this is something that it's, it's not really much, well, I guess it's like a tiny nitpick, is sometimes I go to my inventory and I try to, like, you know, reload my weapon from my inventory, just like in past, like, Resident Evils and, like, you know, the old Silent Hills and what have you. And it's just such a, it's always been that thing that kind of stuck with me for so long. Like, you play so many of them, and you start getting that thing in your head, like, oh, I have to reload from the menu. Or, you know, when you're playing Resident Evil 4, I feel, whenever I do it, it's like, I go to my menu, and I always think to myself, like, maybe there's a way I can actually reload my gun inside the inventory, but no, that's not the case. That would be nice. That would be nice if you could, but you can't. Because essentially what that would end up doing is just basically saving you the reloading animation. That's pretty much all I would, which saves me the trouble from getting hit. And I think they just did away with that in this one, because they want you to take that hit. They want you to hurt. They want the hurting on you. Well, it's more realistic, too. I mean, you can't just reload from a menu in real life. You have to actually do it yourself. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not sure that you can actually do that. I tried combining, and I don't think that worked. Unless I'm just an idiot and I'm forgetting something, who knows. But anyway, this part is relatively easy, and I'll show you the pattern for getting these things lined up. I know there's the puzzles in this game, they all have very specific, very basic either numbers or just ways of patterns, or, you know, basically ways of figuring them out. They're all really stupid basic. And it's kind of sad too, because they're so simple, but when you get to them, they're so difficult to figure out the first time. I mean, so I'm going to show you exactly which order I do. Now, one thing I want you guys to notice, you see how, like, when I'm turning a specific color, there's that little, like, pointer arrow thing on the end of those? Yeah, if you get it located in just the same spot that I will, then it will pretty much just be, like, right there. So you see you got red down, green left, and blue, or, yeah, blue right. I think that's what it was. Blue on the far right, and that's how you get that puzzle. It was something I forgot about when I was doing this recording, but I did remember the exact shapes that fit into place, and that's pretty much what I went by. Of course, if you guys wanted to, you could just skip ahead, look at exactly what the shapes I picked were and all that stuff, and go from there. So, there you go. At least I'm going to try to help you with puzzles. Not much, there's not very many of them in this game, and they're really not that difficult, but they can be brain teasers sometimes. They can get you. They can definitely get you, especially one later where it plays Ashley. That's going to stink. But yeah, speaking of Ashley, she's with us now. So, of course, I'm sure you guys most likely know the commands of how to deal with Ashley. You know, the wait and follow techniques and all that stuff. And we'll deal with her when we get to her. When we get to those situations where we're going to have to be more careful with her. And I think we're coming up to close to the end of the video. I think if you leave the church, that's when it ends. In the next chapter, we're going to deal with the guys outside in the graveyard, and that's going to be a pain, but we'll deal with them as we come to them. So anyway, guys, see y'all next time in Chapter 2-2. So as always, take care, everybody.